Dear students, in this chapter we will be discussing about virtual memory management. In the previous chapter we have studied various memory management strategies that are used in the computer system. And all of these strategies have the same goal, that is to keep multiple processes in the memory simultaneously to allow for multiprogramming. As we all know that in order to execute any process, that process or the program has to be brought into the main memory first from the secondary storage. And also these strategies have the requirement that the entire process has to be loaded into the memory before it can be executed. Okay, so this is what we have studied from the last chapter. In this, what we are going to study, that is virtual memory. Virtual memory is a technique that allows the execution of processes that are not completely in memory. Okay, and we will see what are the advantages of virtual memory. So the major advantage of this virtual memory is that the programs can be much larger than the physical memory. Okay, so this virtual memory, it abstracts the main memory into an extremely large uniform array of storage. Also, it separates the logical memory that is viewed by the user from the physical memory. When I say logical memory, it is nothing but the addresses or the address space that is generated by the CPU. Also, this technique, it allows the user not to worry about the memory storage limitations, so he can write the programs as large as he wants without worrying about the physical storage of that system. Okay. Also, this virtual memory allows processes to share files easily, and it also allows to implement the shared memory concept. Okay. So this virtual memory, it also provides the efficient way for process creation, and it is not easy to implement, and it may substantially decrease the performance of the computer system if it is not used properly. The memory management algorithms are necessary because of the one basic requirement, that the instruction being executed must be in the physical memory. So this can be done by placing the entire logical address space in the physical memory, but to do this, it requires special precautions and also some extra effort or extra work to be done by the programmer. The requirement that the instruction must be in physical memory to be executed, it looks both necessary as well as reasonable, but it is also unfortunate because it limits the size of the program to the size of the physical memory. In fact, an examination that is conducted for real programs shows that in most of the cases the entire program is not required because the entire program is rarely used. You can see some of the examples. Error code. Programs often have code to handle unusual error conditions. That means the programs will be having some of the code to handle some of the unusual conditions that may occur in the program. For example, you can consider a program which has code for exception handling. But in practice, if that error does not occur, that particular part of code will never be executed. Unusual routines. A program may contain some of the routines which are rarely used. Large data structures. For example, when we are writing a program, we will be using data structures like arrays, lists, stars, queues, etc. So normally what we do, we will not think about how much of the size we are using of an array. Consider randomly we may declare an array of size to be 100 by 100, but hardly we may use only 10 by 10 of that particular size. So that means what, we are not using the entire array here. So in such cases, the program need not be loaded entirely into the memory. But even in some cases, even if the entire program is needed, but it may not be needed all at the same time. So the ability to execute partially loaded program will have many benefits. Program would no longer be considered by the amount of physical memory that is available in the system. User would be able to write programs for an extremely large virtual address space, simplifying the programming task. Because each user program could take less physical memory, more programs could be run at the same time, with a corresponding increase in the CPU utilization and the throughput. Since we are up, since we are loading very little amount of code from each of the programs, I can load, instead of loading one entire program, what I can load multiple different programs, which is only required only small part of increased CPU utilization and throughput without increasing the response time or turnaround time. Less I/O would be needed to load or swap each user program into memory so that each user program would run faster. Virtual memory involves the separation of logical memory that is used by the user from physical memory. This separation allows an extremely large virtual memory to be provided for the programmers only when a smaller physical memory is available. Virtual memory makes the task of programmer much easier because the programmer need not worry about the amount of physical memory that is available in that system. Instead, he or she can concentrate on the program that is to be written. Therefore, it allows only part of the program to be in memory for execution, and the logical address space can therefore be much larger than the physical address space. It also allows the address space to be shared by several processes. That is nothing but the concept of shared memory here. That is to build the communication between one or two or more processes. It can make use of the shared memory. It allows more for the efficient process creation. More programs can be run concurrently, and it may require less I/O to load or swap processes. The virtual address space of a process refers to the logical or virtual view of how a process is stored in the memory. This view is that a process begins, say, at address 0 and it exists in contiguous memory locations until the end of the space. And we also know that the physical memory is organized in page frames, and the physical page frame is assigned to a process. It may not be contiguous. And it is also the duty of the memory management unit to map logical pages to physical page frames in the memory. The virtual memory can be implemented via either demand paging or demand segmentation. We will see what are these in the further. And here is the figure that shows virtual memory is much larger than the physical memory. The first table, what we can see here, is nothing but the virtual memory table. Next we have memory mapping unit. Okay. Next is the physical memory, and this is nothing but the last one is nothing but the secondary storage. So the pages from the virtual memory will be mapped to the physical memory with the help of the memory mapping strategies. Okay. So we can see that the virtual memory is much larger than the physical memory. So the figure on the right side shows how a process is stored in the memory. So the address we can see it from 0 to max. It has a code section wherein the program will be stored, and a data section wherein the global and local addresses will be stored. And we have next heap, and here is the stack. Heap is used for dynamic memory allocation, and it grows upwards as we can see this arrow mark. And stack is used to store the return addresses as and when the function calls are made, and it usually grows downwards. The large blank space, or it can be also called as hole, between the heap and the stack is part of the virtual address space, but it will require the actual physical pages only if the heap or stack grows. The virtual address spaces that include such holes are called as sparse address spaces. Using a sparse address space, it is beneficial because the holes can be filled as the stack or heap segments grow, or if we wish to dynamically link libraries during the program execution. So this hole or this space, whatever is there in between stack and heap, is called as a sparse address space. So this can be used whenever the stack or heap grows, or else it can also be used to link the libraries dynamically while executing the programs. In addition to separating logical memory from physical memory, virtual memory also allows files and memory to be shared by two or more processes through pair sharing. That is nothing but in order to have a communication between two processes with the help of virtual memory, a shared memory concept can be implemented, which is going to lead to the following benefits. System libraries can be shared by several processes through mapping of the shared object into a virtual address space. Each process thinks that the shared libraries are a part of its virtual address space, but the actual pages where these libraries reside in the physical memory are shared by all the processes that are there in the system. Usually a library is mapped read-only into the space of each process that is linked with it. Similarly, the virtual memory enables processes to share memory. We know that two or more processes can communicate through the use of the shared memory. So this virtual memory allows one process to create a region of memory that it can share with another process. The processes sharing this region consider it as a part of their virtual address space, but the actual physical pages of memory are shared, which is illustrated in the figure, which is there in the next slide. Virtual memory can allow pages to be shared during the process creation with a fork system call. This helps in speeding up the process creation. The figure shows the shared library using virtual memory. So these are two processes, which is on the left side and the right side figure. These two are two processes, and in between we have some common shared pages. So these pages are nothing but the libraries that can be used by the processes. Okay. So these pages are accessed by both of the processes. Each of the process thinks that this shared library resides in its own virtual address space, but the actual physical memory wherein these pages are stored will be shared by all the processes that are using that particular library file. Now we will begin with the discussion of implementing the virtual memory through demand paging. Let us consider how an executed program might be loaded into the memory from the disk storage. One option is to load the entire program in the physical memory at the program execution time. But the problem associated with this approach is that we may not initially load the entire program in memory. So let us consider an example wherein a user has written a program with a list of available options from which the user need to select one of them. Consider a program of simple calculator written with a switch statement. That means the operations that are done by the simple calculator will be mostly the arithmetic operation, that is addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. So when you write this program with the help of a switch statement, how we can write it? You can write one case for each of the operations. So these are nothing but the options that you are giving it to the user. So the user has to select one from this list. So loading this entire program into memory results in loading the executable code for all the options, whether the user will ultimately choose that option or not. Say for example, in the same program, if the user is opting only for addition or subtraction of the program, if he is choosing only in between those two options, the other two options, that is multiplication and division, will remain unused. So it is not necessary that I need to load the entire program into the memory. If I load entirely, so those two options will remain unused by the user. So the alternative strategy is to initially load pages only when they are needed. So this technique is known as demand paging, and it is commonly used in virtual memory systems. So with the demand paged virtual memory, the pages are loaded only when they are demanded during the program execution. So the pages that are never accessed are never loaded into the physical memory. That means if I consider again the same program, that is for the simple calculator, if the user is choosing only between the options addition and subtraction, and he has never used multiplication and division, so only what he is using, only that particular page will be loaded into the memory. So if he is using only addition and subtraction, only those two will be loaded into the memory, and the part of the code that is written for multiplication and division, those pages will not be loaded into the memory. So this technique is called as demand paging. So you are going to load the pages whenever there is a demand for it. A demand paging system is similar to a paging system with a swapping technique, where the processes reside in the secondary memory. So when we want to execute a process, we swap it into the memory rather than swapping the entire process into the memory. So this is shown in the figure that is there in the right side. So if you are not clear about what is swapping, please go back to chapter number 8, study it and come back and continue with this. For this swapping process, we use a lazy swapper. A lazy swapper never swaps a page into the memory unless that page will be needed for execution. Since we view the memory as a sequence of pages rather than one large contiguous address space, the pager term can be used instead of swapper. A swapper manipulates the entire process, whereas a pager is concerned with the individual pages of a process. So using a pager rather than swapper will be more appropriate in demand paging.
Now we will see the concept of paging. When a process is to be swapped in, the pager will guess which pages will be used before the process is swapped out again. Okay, so instead of swapping in a whole process, the pager will bring only those necessary pages which are required into the memory. So by doing this, it avoids reading into memory pages that will not be accessed at any point of time, so thus leading into the decrease in the swap time and also the amount of physical memory required. So now how we can determine these set of pages is with the help of a new memory management unit functionality. We need to implement the demand paging. Now suppose if the pages that are required are already memory resident, that means if they are already present in the memory, it is also same like the paging concept, which is nothing but there is no difference from the non-demand paging. If the pages are needed and they are not memory resident, that means if they are not present in the memory, then what we have to do is we need to detect such pages and load those pages into the memory from storage without changing the program behavior, also without changing any code that is written by the programmer. Okay, now in order to identify the pages that are already in the memory and the pages that are on the disk, we need some sort of support from the hardware. That is, in order to check whether the page is already loaded into the memory from the disk or it is still not yet loaded. So this can be implemented using a valid invalid bit scheme, which is also described in the previous chapter. So the figure shown in this slide, it is showing an example of page table wherein valid and invalid bit is included for each of the frame numbers. Okay, so when this bit is set to valid, the associated page is both legal and it is in the memory. Valid means that page is valid one and it is already in the memory. And suppose if this bit is set to invalid, the page is either not valid in the sense it is not in the logical address space of the process, or it is valid but it is currently on the disk. So there can be two things: either it will be not valid, that is nothing but the page is not found in the logical address space of the process, or else it is valid but it is still on the disk. So valid is indicated by the letter V, which means in memory, that is nothing but the memory resident. I indicates not in memory, which is not there in the memory. During the address translation, if that valid invalid bit in the page table entry, if it is set to I, that indicates what? It is invalid. That means the page is not found on the memory, which is indicating a page fault. We will see this in detail in the. So in this slide we can see an example of page table where some pages are not in the memory. So the first table indicates the logical memory, second one indicates the page table, next we have physical memory, and it is showing an example of a disk. So what we are trying to check here is the valid pages in the sense the pages that are present in the logical memory are indicated by V in the page table. Okay, and also they are present in the physical memory. And next, invalid is marked for those pages which is not present in the physical memory. Okay, so for example, first one you can see for the page number 0 from the page table I am talking about. For the page number 0, corresponding frame number is 4. Okay, so in the physical memory you can check corresponding to frame 4 we have page A. Okay, so go to the logical memory. So at page 0 we have A. Okay, so that means at page 0 corresponding to frame 4 we have page A. So that means it is also present in the logical memory and it is loaded into the physical memory. So it is a valid page. Okay, next same, go to page 2. Correspondingly frame 6 we have C. From the physical memory at frame 6 we have C. So corresponding to page 2 also we have C in the logical memory. So it is loaded from the secondary memory to main memory, as well as it is present in the logical memory. So that's why it is marked as V. Same as for page number 5 and frame 9 we have F. It is also present in the physical memory. That means it is loaded into the primary memory and it is also present in the logical memory. So the valid bit is set here. Rest of the empty places is kept as invalid, that is bit I is set for that particular bit only because it is not present in the physical memory. That means it is not yet loaded, or it may not be present in the physical memory. That is why it is kept it as I. The continuation of the topic is covered in the next video. Keep watching. Thank you.